Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Visual Effects. Just like the last two, this is one of the easiest categories to call. After this, I think they're going to get a bit harder. But there is some really interesting visual effects work this year. This is an interesting situation where three of the five nominees are from Best Picture nominations, so that's pretty cool. And also, it's pretty interesting some of the movies that were not nominated, which I'm definitely going to get to. I thought that 13 Lives would stand a chance. That was really good, subtle VFX. I thought Nope might stand a chance. And RRR was one that didn't make the shortlist, but could have contended if it had. So I'm just going to get right to the chase because this is another relatively easy one, but there's definitely still some very, very good work that's been nominated this year. Starting with fifth most likely to win is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So this is the only MCU movie nominated this year. Marvel usually gets on for at least one of their movies. And it's interesting because the first Black Panther was not nominated in this category despite being loved enough to get a Best Picture nomination. People did have issues with the visual effects in that film. And this is an instance where the visual effects are improved and people do like them, but the thing about the MCU, first of all, there's all these stories about the way the VFX artists have been mistreated, how they're overworked and underpaid. Um, and if you look at this film, it's obviously it's not bad work, but there's nothing truly special that really makes it stand out from other MCU movies. Once you've seen one MCU movie, there's this feeling that you've kind of seen them all. And the one unique thing that this movie does have is the underwater world, but there's another movie in this category that does the underwater stuff better. So no MCU movie has ever won an Oscar, and I see no reason to predict this movie to be the first one. So, definitely good work, but I just don't think there's enough there that'll make it stand out. Fourth most likely to win is The Batman. Now, this movie has perhaps more subtle visual effects than some of the other nominees, but it is still revolutionary stuff. They essentially used the volume to create virtual sets, and there's a lot of work that went into some of the more elaborate sequences, like the car chase or the flooding building and the climax. It's all really impressive stuff, and the fact that you watch it and you think, what visual effects, really speaks to the strength of the work. However, I do worry that it's a bit too subtle. It came out early in the year, and a lot of people maybe it's not on the forefront of voters' minds. And the top three movies in this category are all up for Best Picture. So while this is certainly good work, I just don't think there's enough there to justify it winning, especially over the competition. Third most likely to win is All Quiet on the Western Front. Now, this is also very subtle work, and I wasn't entirely sure of how, I wasn't entirely sure of where the visual effects were being used, but this film does have a smaller budget than you would expect given the type of story it's telling, and I think it's another case where the subtle visual effects really do save the day. The reason why I rank this higher than The Batman is this is a Best Picture nomination, and it is very similar to 1917, which surprisingly won this category despite also having very subtle VFX work, just because the film itself was really beloved. So this might be one of the most. It's arguable, but this you could debate that this is the most loved film in this lineup. Uh, and so, while it's really, really cool, I think I heard from somewhere that this might be the first non English language film to be nominated in this category. Don't quote me on that, but that would be pretty impressive if it is the case. Um, Obviously, very, very impressive that it got this nomination, but I just don't. Again, it's too subtle, and I think, well, once I get to the top contenders, I think you'll understand. Second most likely to win is Top Gun Maverick. So this is interesting because the whole, like, the thing that they said over and over and over with this movie is it's all practical, that it's not CGI. We really are getting in planes and flying around. So for a while, I didn't even think this was going to be nominated, but I think they've started being more open about the fact that there actually is some CG elements to certain things, like the missiles and the explosions are obviously fake, and there's like, again, more subtle stuff. But the thing about Top Gun Maverick is it's such a loved movie. And I think people will see the stuff. Honestly, in more recent years, Oscar voters have gravitated towards rewarding more practical effects. And I think that that might give this film a bit of a leg up, on top of just how loved the film is overall. But I just worry it's too practical, and there's a sense of, well, what effects are there really? Like, congratulations on awarding practical elements, but we like to award something with some visual elements. I do think it's the runner up. I do think it's going to receive the second most amount of votes, but this is another one of those categories where the film that's number one is very, very high up. And that number one film is Avatar: The Way of Water. So this was inevitable. You can even find in my year in advance predictions, I said this is the one category that's already locked up. If James Cameron really is taking this long to release Avatar 2, the effects had better be impressive. And they certainly are, because he finished filming this movie years and years ago and had so much time to work on the visual effects. And if you look at the visual effects artist react episode, it's really fascinating how there's some live action. There's actually more live action than you might initially think. It almost feels like an animated movie at first, but there's live action elements that are woven in so seamlessly, and it's really fascinating to see what's live action and what's CGI in certain shots, because it's all about what's going to look best on the camera. And there's no denying that this movie looks pretty unbelievable, and that the facial capture that was used to capture the performances is beyond what the first movie did. And the first movie was such a huge technological breakthrough, and this movie just is so much more impressive than the first film in terms of the amount of new technology that had to be created. And the movie is this big, big contender for Best Picture. It's loved, it made so much money, and it swept the Visual Effects Artists Awards. So, yeah, there really is no conceivable way that this loses. The funny thing is, I remember thinking for a long time that if there was one movie that might stand a chance at beating Avatar, it was Everything Everywhere, because A, that movie is super beloved, and B, it's really impressive what they were able to do on such a tiny budget, and the homemade, fun little effects that were used. The problem is that movie did not make the short list, probably because the VFX artists were like, yeah, I can do this in 2 hours in After Effects. This isn't that special. Um, Still very impressive what that movie pulled off, and I still maintain that if it was nominated here, it would be number two. But unfortunately, it's not here, and Avatar has a easy path to the Oscar. So, thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time where I will be taking a look at the category of Best Animated Short Film. See you then.